a ton of other movies, but the most memorable was Legends of the Fall. I mean, she was spectacular in that movie when Brad's going to save his brother behind enemy lines. She was in the bomb.
Cameras were rolling, and she heard that word rolling, and she just jumped in the air and flipped over and landed on a burning body underneath us.
I just stayed in the saddle, rode her into the ground, and felt like she bust me in two, like she always does, because she hits you hard.
The only saddle horse that I've ever seen, or the only fallen horse I've ever seen, that would pipe roll.
She's like a tornado. She goes up in the air and spins out, and I mean, crashes hard. She looks like somebody put a bomb underneath her.
And while that story was developing, Gary Franklin was in Alberta, Canada, where one of Japan's most successful movie producers is filming a large-scale samurai epic called Heaven and Earth. The battle scenes are now being shot near Calgary, and they utilize 3,000 extras and 800 horses. The 16th century epic will wrap in December and is scheduled for release next June. Meanwhile, Gary has scheduled a special series of reports on this production beginning tomorrow. Along with behind-the-scenes footage, Gary will explain why filmmakers prefer Canadian locations.
I want a 10-gallon Stetson and a horse that bears my brand. 1,000 head of cattle on a great.
Hi, I'm John Scott. I operate a working cattle ranch here. We also have a herd of buffalo. Keep a lot of horses for the motion picture business. It's basically a movie ranch as well. We've got several sets here on the ranch. We've shot a lot of pictures here. Little House on the Prairie, The Virginian, Crossfire Trail, several pictures like that. Been in the business for close to 40 years. Had a lot of good horses around the place, and we're going to talk today about a special horse called Reba. This is one of the best fallen horses there is in Canada. We did a show in 1990 called Heaven and Earth. Went through 1,000 head of horses to get 750 in front of the camera. It's one of the largest saddle horse pictures ever made in Canada or the United States. And we're doing most of it right here in the Morley Flats and Morley Indian Reservation. Haruki Katakawa, director and producer of this picture. He's the 6th richest man in the world. He came here to spend his money. We're helping him get it spent.
1,000 head of cattle on a big piece of land. I want a ranch in Arizona.
That's where we found Reba. That she wanted to be a rearing horse. Initially started as a rearing horse, but no horse is going to tell you what she's going to be. A horse already knows what it wants to be.
There was horses from Louisiana, from everywhere. There was, like, to get 1,000 head of horses for the Japanese movie, we just had to get them from everywhere, so you never know where she came from.
And if you don't step aside now, I'd just as soon kill you as not. You want to die out here in this miserable weather? That's your choice.
I'm going to ask you one more time. Would you please give me the gold?
The 5 guys that have fallen Reba in a major motion picture have been Greg Schlosser, Guy Buse, Tom Glass, Jason Glass, and me. And I'm the best.
Just look at that horse. It's trained beautifully, humanely. It lies down. It won't get up until Brent says so. That horse will play dead for the camera. And here he comes by himself. Isn't that nice? That's Brent Woolsey.
Another thing that they used to do in the older days was a toe tapper, where you'd just drill a little hole in the hoof there and run a cable through there, and then came up to your saddle horn and back there by your cantle and give it a quick pull and pull the horse's head at the same time. They kind of had to go down. And then some other guys would just dig pits in the ground and then just run the horses right at the pit. And both the rider and the horse took quite a shake-up. That was a different era when the horses were they were labeled the same as an actor. In other words, it was Roy Rogers and Trigger, and Gene Autry and Champion, and Lone Ranger and Silver.
When we started picking them out on Heaven and Earth, it was the horse that if you were riding and went to slow them down, they'd rear in the air and get their front feet in the air and shake their head at you and not want. If you wanted to go right, and they'd shake their head and fight you all the time. So the idea of a rearing horse is if you get them on a little gallop, and when their front feet lift off the ground, which these goofy horses like to get in the air, as soon as their front feet lift and the ground lift off the ground, you have the advantage because they're in the air and off balance. And at that point, you do your cross, take their head, and pull them over, and that's when they'll lay down. And we try and do that in a sand pit to start out, where it's nice, soft landing for them, doesn't hurt them. Because if you hurt them, they won't do it. The next time they just fight you too much, and you'll never get them over. So you got to do it gentle, do it easy in the pit. We'll lay them down with nobody on them. Just cross their head over, lay them down, pet them, then you feed them the sweet feed and the mash, and kind of, just treat them, pet them, and leave them lay there in the sand. And then the next time you bring them a little quicker and a little quicker, and then you start doing it with a man on the horse, laying them down, and then just gradually progress to a trot, a walk, a trot, and into a gallop.
The thing about her was that when she went to do her stunt, that she'd kind of cannon roll in the air and turn sideways, and she was very, very picturesque on film. Brent wrote her in Legends of the Fall, Dublin Brad Pitt, and it was quite a shot beside an explosion.
Very few of them would really want to, go to a gallop and lay down. Reva just happened to be one of those that was really photogenic and wanted to go through the air and do it.
I did a movie, Bury My Heart and Wounded Knee, and they asked me, they said, where are you going to land? And I just basically told them, where do you want me to land? And they said, well, preferably in here. I said, okay, I'll land right here. And I said, focus your cameras here, I will hit here. And then I walked back 9 steps. Well, nine steps. If anybody knows me, I'm very long-legged. I could have squashed a popcorn bag that day.
A lot of them don't make it because they can't take it. It's just like, they're like human beings. You get slammed on the ground a few times and you go, I don't want to do this anymore. But there's very few of them that'll keep doing it. And Reva just happened to be one of the few that keeps doing it. Everybody thinks that when they're past 10 that they're getting old, but that's probably the best years. From 10 to 20 is probably their best years, and that's what I think. Reva's 25 now. She's probably borderline of being too old, but if I'm young enough to fall her, she's young enough to fall too.
Yeah, I grew up in a rodeo family with my grandfather being a rodeo cowboy during the dirty 30s. My dad He was a 5-time Canadian all-around champion. I was a steer wrestler. Brent and I used to actually travel together. That's probably part of the reason I got into the film business. I was the Alberta Rodeo Cowboys Association steer wrestling champion in 1985, and then 3 years after that I turned pro. Went for 10 years, rodeoed in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, the United States.
The Legend of Zorro in Mexico, at San Luis, and I cannoned a wagon, and it's the first time that a wagon's ever been cannoned. And anyways, it was an ass buster, and it seems like when you're 20, you probably do it over and over again, but when you get older and you got a wife and kids and you want to go home and not be killed, you only want to do it once.
We're here at the Ponoka Stampede today. I've been here with my mom and dad when I was 7, 8 years old. Went on to outriding behind the wagons when I was 14 and outrode till I was 17 years old. And me and a buddy went to Texas that winter, and there was a guy running pony wagons down there, the little guys, and I drove some for him in Texas that winter. And the bug bit me and came home and bought 4 old horses, hooked them up, and started out to be a wagon driver. I was 17 years old at that time and not very good at it, and the horses knew as little as I did, but we learned as the years went on. We got better and better, and down the road we ended up winning 3 world titles, world champion 3 times, Calgary Stampede champion. I won it 4 times. I've won the Ponoka Stampede here 4 times, Grand Prairie and here and there, but had a great career. My dad taught me a lot about horses and how to pick them and choose them, and my grandfather raced wagons, my dad, now my son, so it's kind of hard not to learn.
Oh, I got to work and such.
That's how I think Reba is. She's automatic, but yet she's not automatic. Because if you weren't going to go to the ground before her, she wasn't going to go to the ground either. She either make you look like a hero or make you look like an idiot.
I was 13th Warrior, and I fell her like 11 times that one day. And McTurnan, he says, can we go again? And I said, yeah, we can go all day long if you want. But when she says she's had enough, she'll tell you she's had enough. But she would have went all day. I mean, like, it's how much ever money they got. Reba, when she falls, she's like a counter lever. And when she's so high in the air, she uses you to balance to push off herself. So if you give her her head back even a half an inch, she'll go back down to the ground. But if you stay up in the saddle with her and ride her all the way to the ground, she'll go wherever you want her to go.
I'm a 4th generation chuck wagon driver. My great-grandfather raced, my grandfather, my father Tom, and now myself. It's been a great way to grow up and live. You know, we've been rewarded with some accomplishments through chuck wagon racing. The horses have brought us 2 world championships. We've won the aggregate in Calgary a couple times. In this sport, you know, there's 4 horses pulling the chuck wagon, so it's a lot different from what these horses are used to doing on the racetrack. So